it's a top-down, except you don't play as Link. You play as Zelda.
Whoa.
Hey, welcome to episode 184 of Front Seat Gamer. I'm Nick. I'm here with Paul.
Hey.
And Blake.
Hey, Nick.
Hi,
Hey,
guys.
Paul. Hi.
It's been a quick 2 weeks since our last episode. Don't check. Nobody look at the history of the podcast or the dates the episodes came out. We said last time we'll be back in 2 weeks, and it's been exactly 2 weeks.
It's been 2 weeks. A lot has happened in that 2 weeks. Feels like a lot of time has happened in that 2 weeks, but
I think it's just a regular amount.
Yeah, it's just your perception.
Yeah, it's all news, right?
I know. You know when you get older and you're like, man, time's going so fast. It's like that.
Yeah, it's because of there was a bunch of politics.
Yeah,
there was politics.
There was
and
a
then
lot.
There's weather, finances,
the economy,
stocks and bonds.
Stocks and bonds. Yeah.
I
think those
sports.
are all.
There was sports.
Yeah, there was
sports.
Yeah,
you're right. Yeah.
And people and culture.
Man, look at us being topical.
This isn't a podcast where we read out the sections of a newspaper, and sometimes we talk about video games. A newspaper, for people listening, is something that doesn't exist anymore.
They're online now. Newspaper is like a website.
Now it's a news. Now it's a news screen.
Yeah.
Lately we've been starting with questions and comments. Do we want to kick it off with that?
I think we
Sure.
do.
Let's do a little bit of that.
Let's catch up over the last 2 weeks.
This is from Robert Wolf. No more blabies, Blake. Perfect comment.
Yeah.
Killed it. This is from Slippery Jim 8. Giving Elden Ring another go, regretting it every encounter. Perfect. Another perfect comment. Installed modded Tarkov, getting an Elden Ring-like experience with these cracked AI bots. Also started your podcast series from the beginning. I'm 15 episodes in, and number 13 is my favorite so far. Y'all talked a bit about avoiding burnout, and that doing something else is fine. Because when you feel like doing the original thing, you're putting in your best work instead of forced work, or something like that. I don't know. Kind of wild how long you've had the intro song for it. Didn't expect to see it so soon. Not gonna lie, it's a banger. Cheers.
It is a banger.
Again, great comment. Thanks, Slippery Jim. These are nothing to answer in these. So
do you admit, listening from the start is that's going to be a journey.
Yeah. Also, that's wild. It's like not only is that a journey, those first few episodes are so rough.
Man, they really are.
Echo
and the out of sync. We were out of sync a lot, our tracks, because of we didn't know what we were doing, and
wizards.
Things would get out of sync the longer the podcast went on.
But that's great to hear that someone out there listens that far back. Aiden Sichi 9327 says the reason that questions are so good is they allow for community engagement with your podcast, like how you could ask us all to say no more blabies.
No more blabies.
Again, perfect. Anywho, regarding Slay the Spire, I've seen an article somewhere that over something like several 100,000 simulated runs in the game, every seed is technically winnable given perfect game knowledge. This could also be internet misinformation. Given this info, Blake, why? Again, wonderful.
I like that last point, Blake. Why?
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Also, you should really try Armored Core 6. I've recommended it in the past, but it's truly a great game with a really addictive gameplay loop and cool mechanics, which is surprising given that it's the same studio that made Elden Ring.
Yeah,
I've heard really good things about that game.
I've heard nothing but good things. Much like Elden Ring, I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Nothing from
nobody.
No one said anything negative about Elden Ring.
I've never heard anyone of note say anything.
Blake doesn't listen to the podcast, confirmed, even when editing the podcast. Well, let's talk a little bit about Slay the Spire. Something I think is really interesting. It said every seed is technically winnable given perfect game knowledge. Now, perfect game knowledge. That is the.
What does that
that's
mean,
the wrinkle.
though? Because
what that means
it's so
is
random.
Well, that's the thing. It's not. It's a seed.
Yeah.
So, if you have a fixed seed and you load up multiple instances of the game, you can test out every branch of every possible thing, and then you can get a winnable run. But that's the problem with a game like Slay the Spire, where it is technically winnable given perfect game knowledge. You don't have perfect game knowledge. You can take the left path instead of the right path, and then you get an unwinnable run potentially. But that's almost certainly like the highest possible difficulty
Yeah.
where that kind of thing matters.
So
most of the game,
perfect game knowledge is basically knowing everything that's coming
it's
in a game
it's
that
knowing,
there's no way to know.
it's knowing who you're gonna fight, what your rewards are gonna be offered,
Yeah.
and what the optimal path to victory with all of those.
But
things.
that's an impossible
it is.
thing. So
Well, it's possible if you use the fixed seed and then you're like, okay, this path didn't work. I'll try a different one.
well, if you do it over and over, you use the same seed over
Yeah,
and over.
exactly.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
That
But-
might be something that someone wants to do, right? You might want to go through a certain thing and see if you can beat that.
Well, that's I don't know how speedrunning works in that game, but I do know that there is speedrunning.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if using a fixed seed is the norm for speedrunning that game,
I don't know either.
but I have seen a speedrun of Slay the Spire that lasted like 4 minutes.
Oh wow.
So it's definitely a thing.
Yep.
But I don't know if it was a fixed seed or if it was just like that's part of the dynamic is you have to do a random seed or what. I don't know. I really like that game though. Was it Blake who was saying you weren't into it or Paul?
Oh, it was me. I think I tried it at a bad time. I'd been playing similar things and
because you said I think I don't know if I had talked about it on the podcast, but I got a game called Wild Frost,
yes.
and it's very similar in sort of structure to Slay the Spire. Some of the gameplay elements are different, and a lot of the sort of powers and stuff are different. But in terms of its sort of meta structure, it's very similar. And you said, "Oh, that's a great game." I was surprised because I think you said that you didn't get that into Slay the Spire.
Yes,
but
I
they're
actually
very
do
similar.
really like Wild Frost.
That's
But
what
I
it is.
think it might have even been the game I was playing before I tried Slay the Spire.
I think the worst thing about Slay the Spire is the art direction. It is
Interesting.
kind of janky. It feels a bit like a Flash game from 2006 in the sort of the way the characters move and animate and the sort of
I
just the
didn't
general
even
vibe of
think about it.
But the thing I really like about it is the sort of variety of builds you can take on and have a successful run if you kind of know what you're doing.
Yeah, see, I don't think I got to that point. So I was still stuck in the last run was really good. I wish I could do that again.
Right. Yeah.
Presented with things that I don't really know how to scale them.
Mm.
I mean, like, I didn't hate the game. And I do think it is a good game. I just didn't have much fun playing it.
What?
Um,
No, that you know what? That makes perfect sense to me because there are plenty of games where I acknowledge this is a good game, and I had a bad time with it.
yeah, like for me, like those Zelda games you really like are also the same situation. I know they're good, but like I don't
Those Zelda
enjoy
games
playing
you really
them.
like.
Yeah.
No one's heard of them.
Like coming out in like 3 years or something, right?
Speaking of, I don't know if this was announced before the last time we recorded, but there's a new Zelda that's coming out in I think in September or October. And I've forgotten the name of it. It's like Zelda something wisdom something 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 wisdom the wise. Basically, you are playing as Zelda, and it is basically I think from what I can
Crazy.
tell, it's set in the same timeline as Link's Awakening, which was the Game Boy Zelda.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
top down.
Yeah.
In that game, it's like spoilers. It's all a dream.
What?
Yeah, it's all a dream. Or at least that's the implication. And
So you get to play as someone else in the same dream.
I just found a noodle on my leg, guys. This is
Oh,
the trial
shout
out
populations
to
of having
Noodle.
children. So in this, however, you're playing as Zelda. The whole game, I was seeing the trailer. The game starts off with like Link getting trapped in like a shadow dimension.
Yeah. He should be captured by Ganon.
I
And
think
he should have
I think
to
he
be.
is.
Oh my god!
I think he is.
And Zelda.
he
has to
banishes
rescue-
Ganon, and then in doing so,
Yeah.
like Ganon sort of traps him in like the shadow realm.
Wow.
And you have, as Yu-Gi-Oh, you have to save him.
Yeah.
And now the thing about this, the mechanic is really cool.
Okay.
It is you have like a magic staff, and there's like a fairy who follows you around called I think Try or whatever. So very Zelda-y things. But the sort of key mechanic is you find echoes or copies of objects that you can then duplicate at will.
Okay.
So like, oh, I found a bed which has like a special aura to it, and I can now copy that bed anywhere and I can climb on it, and I can make another copy of the bed on that bed. So I can make stairs out of the beds,
Okay.
and then I can reach high places. Or you can find enemies that you can copy, and then you can summon copies of the enemies to fight your enemies.
Oh.
It's really cool. It's super open ended
Yeah.
puzzle solving. You can copy cubes of water, and then like make a waterfall that you can like swim up or something. It seems really cool. It feels like the sort of Breath of the Wild open-ended puzzle solving mentality taken to the top-down Zelda aesthetic and gameplay, and sort of pared back for a more sort of streamlined experience.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for that to come out.
That's interesting. I didn't know anything about this.
That's because
Even,
y'all aren't cool enough for Zelda.
I guess not. What's the game called again?
Good question. And
something.
Hey, so another comment. This is from Fuzzy Juzzy. Riven is on a whole other level, makes Myst look like a prototype project, which it kind of is. There you go.
Yes. This was in response to me saying on Twitter that I'm thinking of playing Riven.
And then he did.
And then I did play Riven.
And
it was great.
except
Okay. Except I'm going to rant about some rocks for a little while. So the game is like legit fantastic.
Yeah.
I had such a blast playing it. But there is a weird thing where the rocks in the game, the more I look at them, the worse they look. Like when at first glance, like on a thumbnail, I'm like, "Fuck, this looks fantastic." And when you first load in, you're like, "This looks great." But then it's like the more I look at them, I'm like, something's not right about them, and I'm seeing I think there are problems with. So there's a few problems. So one is some rocks just have like bad UVs, and that means that like they are not textured properly. They're like you see weird artifacts in them, like weird triangles and weird artifacts and things like that.
now, do you know what UV stands for?
I actually don't.
Okay. Do you know what from a layman's perspective?
Yeah.
I'm looking at a game. What is the UV doing to a rock?
UVs. So if you imagine, say you've got a cube, right? Like imagine you've got a cardboard cube in real life, right?
Oh, I do.
Okay. and
I'm an adult.
Awesome.
So
you got cardboard cubes. So
we got the boxes, but go on.
UVs are essentially an unfolded version of that cardboard cube, which will look
Flattened box.
like a T. What?
It's like when you break down a cardboard box.
Almost. Well, actually, almost. Yeah. You break it down into a flat plane.
Yeah.
That then you draw on, and then you fold them back up.
Yeah.
Like this is stuff that I remember in like primary school, where it was like
You're doing
hey,
like dice or something,
it's
right?
like
You
dice.
fold up a dice.
yeah, like folding up a dice. It's that it's that exact thing, but then that is on every object in an entire game, including like rocks. They all get like unfolded into these like 2D.
That's how you do textures.
2D textures, yeah. And in the old days, you used to hand paint them, and now there's like more advanced programs. And
It's what's bad is I still thought you hand painted them.
there's a level of hand painting.
I've seen people at like in offices
Yeah.
drawing on.
It always depends on the art style.
Yeah.
But there's always a level of some hand painting.
Sure.
A lot of it is done in new software now that like does the kind of stuff that would take like hours or days to do can be done in like just a couple of minutes.
That's cool.
It's like that's why the quality of things is like so much higher now with the same amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like AAA games are taking longer and longer and longer.
There's just more of it now. It's like, there's just more and more. Just add more.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also the level of quality has increased. The expectations have increased, and so the workload has increased. A perfect example of this is Elder Scrolls.
Yeah.
6, whatever it is, that's coming out in several years and was announced almost 10 years ago, something like that. Was it 6-8 years ago?
Was it? Damn,
it was a
probably
while
was.
ago. I'm pretty sure it was pre-COVID.
It was the same time that Starfield got announced, and they just showed the logos.
Is it?
No, I definitely remember they had
Starfield was announced
Starfield
before that, but I think they were like they were starting to properly promote
Okay.
Starfield. But anyway, yeah, I remember
And all they had was basically
it was a logo and a sort of flyover
Yeah,
of
which
the landscape.
I mean, the flyover landscape could be like, I
It
mean,
looked
that
like After
that'd be
Effects or
anything.
something
Like
like that,
that's
yeah.
you can't take that as the real
Right.
game. But yeah. Anyway, so I'm trying to explain about these rocks. Uh, they they look fine first up, but I notice problems that we have seen in our own game, and they are problems that we would fix because we would look at it and say this isn't acceptable for release. We'd have to fix it. One of the main problems is what I think is baked in AO, so baked in like ambient occlusion information that is telling the lighting to create shadows in the rocks, and that's all good, but you can you can crank that too high, and so when you do that, it just looks like these deep black splotches all over these rocks.
Okay.
And if you like lessened it, then it would look more like shadow. Like that happens to us all the time. Like we'll bake out a rock or anything, and we'll put it in game and be like, oh, the ambient occlusion is too high, and so we just have a like literal slider that we just slide until it's looking
Until it looks nice.
until it looks good.
Yeah.
And that is what I want to do on these rocks. It's just like slide this thing like that. So that's one thing, and I swear that is only because I see it in our game all the time, and we deal with
So
that
it's a,
like every
a
single
fairly
day.
subtle problem.
I'd say it's pretty subtle, but I wonder if I mention it, people will notice it.
Okay, so you're ruining people's
I'm
experience.
ruining people's
Can
experience.
we just like quickly like what is Riven? And, like,
Oh my God.
And also like why are the rocks like
So Riven
central?
The rocks are not central; they're just central to me.
Riven is the remake of the prequel of Myst.
Okay.
No, it's the sequel.
Is it a sequel?
Yes,
I know, but it came out
It says
after.
sequel to Myst in the title.
I thought that it was a prequel that came out after, but I might be.
there
I
might
be wrong.
there might have been there's like 5 or 6.
There's a bunch of
games?
Mysts.
Yeah, but Riven
So,
came out
so
after.
puzzle game, go around a bunch of islands and solve puzzles.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is on. I got into this after you talking about Talos. Principle,
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that Riven game has just come out. I never played the original Riven. I played the original Myst. I loved it. It's like one of my favorite games. Never played Riven, and I was like, now is a perfect time, and it is fantastic. They've made it. They made it full 3D, so you're walking around first person, camera looking around and everything.
As opposed to like clicking through scenes.
Yeah, instead of clicking through scenes. The downside to that is I
rocks.
miss the
Yeah, the rocks, right?
well, yeah.
As you walk around and
I miss the what is it? The real FMV.
Yeah,
I
FMVs.
I miss that. That had a real charm to it that you just can't do in like full 3D. Otherwise, it would just
I
be
think
plain.
I think if you went back and played Myst, you'd be like, oh, you know what? I don't miss.
Well,
these.
here's the thing. After playing Riven, I started playing Myst 3.
Okay.
And that hasn't got a remaster version. It is like as it was, and it's like yeah, okay, it doesn't look incredible, but that is really I think just because the resolution was I think it's like 480 at its most, like
Yeah.
the whole game.
So what you're asking for, but the whole reason they use FMVs is because they want to use high res assets, right?
Yes,
And they want to use like high detail,
and you couldn't do that
high
back then
poly
at all.
models.
Yeah,
And you're saying I miss how that now they used to do high detail, high poly models, and now I'm stuck with these stupid high detail, high poly models that I can move freely around.
well, the thing is they're not high detail. That's the problem. Is that the world looks fantastic, but
Yeah.
the
rocks.
the characters. I mean, the rocks are their own thing. The rocks just, but I swear the rocks are probably just like my own problem with them because I've watched a bunch of people reacting. Nobody complains about
the
the
thing
rocks.
is, here's the thing. I think rocks, for whatever reason, are like you can almost pick an artist out of a lineup of 100 people if you just say who here likes looking at rocks.
Yeah.
And anybody who raises their hand, you'd be like artist, artist, artist.
Yeah.
Because I've spoken to a lot of artists at
Yeah.
several studios, and they all love talking about rocks and rock textures and rock
Yeah,
detail,
it's-
rock lighting. Something about artists, they just love rocks.
I think because rocks are like everyone knows what a rock looks like in real life. Everyone knows, and trying to like and trying to get as close to realism in a game with rocks is like just a bar that you want to try to like constantly hit. I think like Yeah, it's
But
it's
why is
purely
it-
just
why is
trying
it-
to recreate
why is
what's
it-
in real life in there.
Oh,
but
but-
it's specifically for rocks.
Yeah, the thing is, it's not trees.
well,
Everyone knows what a tree looks like.
yeah,
It's no one. There's none of the same reverence is held for
I got-
trees in games or like dirt, grass,
yeah. What?
a road, a car. Everyone knows what a car,
I mean,
a bicycle.
all
None of these things. No one's going at looking at GTA and going, well, I don't like the way they've done the lamp posts. You know, like the light.
yeah, it's the
street
rocks,
lights.
right?
It's the rocks. Everyone's talking. Every artist obsesses about the rocks in these games.
Yeah,
But this, you say it like that's the only thing people
I
communally know.
I
There are things in other places besides rocks.
are there?
Well, you know, game developers don't go outside much, so
No. Yeah, I mean, this is a good point. I don't know why people obsess over rocks, but I did. I just did, and I
My
am.
theory is that it is because they are static objects that like they form barriers. They
Yeah.
have to serve a lot of purposes in games.
Yeah. I mean,
and
there's also they are pure nature in a way.
as opposed to
More
trees.
so than
That's
trees.
exactly what I
More
mean.
so than trees.
More so than trees.
I say more so than trees
Okay,
because
explain.
as soon as you start,
Well, you
okay,
have to explain.
okay, sure. As soon as you start, like artificially changing a rock, you are carving it. Then it's its own thing. Then you just have a rock carving, and that is like its own asset that like isn't it has artists like flavor to it.
Hey Blake,
Yeah.
water.
I don't care about water.
That's what I'm saying. What? I don't understand. Ice.
Water is
Like-
ice is really tough. Water is like a real thing as well. But
Oh no way.
But isn't good water most
no,
I think it's just
water
in
is
video
a,
games.
Water is a real thing that people obsess over as well. But I think it's different people because
Yeah.
at least at our studio,
It's like the engine guy.
there is engine people.
I was
and
going to
it's
say,
like-
good water, I'm pretty sure, is like mostly physics.
Yeah, it's
So,
all physics and like
the physics
shaders
of
and
rock
stuff
is
that.
like down,
Yeah, no one's like
down hard.
no one's going into ZBrush and sculpting water and then baking that. At least I don't think so.
Because you get steam.
Yeah.
They used to.
Yeah. Yeah. But I get like a rock is just what it is. I don't know how to explain this. But a tree, a human can like sculpt a tree into like different shapes and be like whatever it is. As soon as you start doing that to a rock, you are like artificially changing it. So it's like a rock is just
You're artificially
what it
changing
is.
a tree if you do the same thing.
But
What do you
trees
think
do
bonsai
have-
is?
No, that's what I just said. That's what I just said.
Yeah, I'm saying-
You can artificially change a tree. So sculpting a tree into whatever you want.
Yeah, and that's somehow less natural or more natural than.
No, that's less natural.
But what? So it's what I'm saying is
Rocks are just rocks, man. and
The thing is,
I know.
I do
Why do
kind of
people love
get
it
what
so
you're
much?
saying. I don't know. I don't know that I could do a better job of saying anything.
it's like
about
as soon as you start putting some like human artistry onto it, you are changing like if I can barely explain this.
I think. Hey Blake, do you think you could from scratch model a natural looking rock?
That'd be tough.
Now I think maybe that's the key. To me, a rock is the subject of so many natural forces that to emulate it and get it looking natural.
This is basically what I'm just trying to
No.
explain.
Well, maybe.
Yeah. I'm just doing it badly.
Okay, well, I'll try and do a
All right.
better job. It is a subject of so many natural forces
Yeah.
that to try and emulate that is difficult to the point of maybe impossibility.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you can probably fudge a tree.
Yeah, and
And
you
make it
can
look
make trees like, oh, this is a spooky tree. You know, oh, this is like a
Can you do a
gnarly
spoo-
tree.
Do you think you can
Like,
make a spooky rock?
No, but I'm saying you can have a character. A tree can have character.
Can a
Trees
rock
are
have
also
character?
alive,
Rock-
right?
Yeah.
And like will in the real world try and adapt to whatever situation you put them in and
True.
end up in weird
Yeah.
which is how you can force them to grow in certain ways.
Yeah.
But yes, what you're saying about natural forces being on it, that I think is the key. That is what I'm very badly trying to explain.
Right.
Because as soon as you,
You
never mind.
it's really hard to, as an artist, create a rock that looks like it's been weathered by the rain.
Yes.
And and other geological forces, and an amount of moss growing on it that looks
Yeah.
natural, or
Yeah.
lichen, or whatever it is. I get it.
Yeah. Because
I still think it's hilarious just how obsessive people are.
People get into it, and like we at work have really been trying for. So I see this all. I'm all over the place now. I mean, all scattered about these rocks.
Think about rocks gets you all hot and bothered.
Yeah,
now.
all riled up. So a very common thing in video games is when you're making like a cliff or like a cliff face or something like that, or it's just to slam like rock assets into each other,
Okay.
almost willy nilly.
Sure.
And this is happening in Riven as well.
Yeah,
it's like there's parts where you're walking along like a ravine, and it's like one type of rock.
Yeah.
But then you come to a cave, and suddenly it's like this completely different
Right.
type of rock that
Yeah.
you can very see that it's like artificial in a way that's
Gone
like
from
only
gray
in a
to
video
kind
game.
of red or whatever.
Yeah, and you can see it's not blended into and stuff like that. And in Path of Exile, we've really like identified that as not a great thing.
Yeah.
And so we really do try to like make everything unified, and
Yep.
if we are changing something from inside this cave is red, outside is like black,
Yeah.
there's a transition area. It's
Yeah.
not just this hard cut of like, okay, now there's red rock.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look natural.
Yeah.
And
You
even
notice.
and sometimes even like the reference images we have, things like that do just happen in
Yeah.
nature, but they don't feel right in a video game.
Yeah.
It feels such like a video game thing that even in nature you're like that. I'm looking at it. There's a photo of it,
Yeah.
but it doesn't
That can't
look right.
happen.
Yeah. And there's other things where it's like this is what you're getting to with the forces of nature on it, is like the grain of the rock, and this comes into where people are just slamming bits of rock together
Right.
willy-nilly, all different angles, whatever,
Yeah.
just trying to-
Layers in grain, and
Yeah,
they'll start
and-
to
and
clash, and
they'll be
very
trying to
bad.
get like a good silhouette, right?
Yeah.
But when you step back and look at it, it's like one rock is like, you can tell it's like the grain of it is kind of going one way, another is going another, and it just looks like this like mess.
Yeah.
And so we really try to think, okay, these cliffs, they're all kind of going in this, like
Right.
all the grain goes in this direction kind
Yeah.
of thing. There's like,
I would imagine, especially in a game like PoE, where then you have to deal with tile rotation,
Yeah.
and all these elements that when because those areas are randomized, having to keep all those things consistent. That
it's tough. It
Yeah.
it can be tough. It's like some things are locked in, which is great because then you can really craft it. So in PoE, the entrance in PoE 2, I'm sure there's footage of this, but there's a entrance to a prison that you walk up, and
well, hang on, there's going to be a prison in this action RPG,
yes, there is
a prison area.
a prison area.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Is that new? Is that like a
I think we're the first
First
to do
time?
it. I
First
think
time?
we're the first to do
Yeah.
it. No one has thought of that environment
so
before.
cool.
A prison. Yeah, I know. Desert next as well. That's
No
gonna be, that's gonna be pretty. Yeah, I know.
you guys should put like a town or something in there, like a place where you can go.
That's too far. It's never
Like
been done
NPCs.
before. Never been
Okay,
done before.
you're right. Sorry.
Can't be done. Don't have the technology.
Well, in
Yeah.
PoE 3.
Yeah. But in this this tile, because it was one big thing, it was always in a locked position.
Yep.
I was able to we could get a really specific look where all the rocks are like jagged in the same direction. And I mean, I might have done it, but I think it looks great. I always look at it and go, that looks pretty good.
That's great.
Yeah.
I would love to see it if you can get permission to show it off.
I'm pretty sure there's footage of it.
Awesome.
Yeah, but what you're saying as well with like the tile rotation and stuff,
Yeah.
then you have to make stuff that is more kind of like
Direction agnostic.
yeah, and anything that is directional has to kind of be like almost isolated by itself,
Right.
You know,
Like in the middle of the tile,
Yeah.
as opposed to connecting.
yeah, and you can sort of fudge things a bit where okay, maybe these tiles are not always used in a full directions, but maybe only used in two directions. So
Right.
you can have like rock that looks like it could the grain it can go either
Right.
either way.
Yeah. Interesting.
And we also have
So-
new sort of tech that allows us to like change, like add different details depending on the rotation.
So Riven,
Oh, that's
of the
cool.
thing. But anyway, Riven. Where was I with that?
Something
You're
about
talking
rocks.
You know,
So-
the thing
Oh
you've
no,
been
I
talking
asked what kind of game it was, and you were just talking about how it's
Puzzles.
Puzzles.
Yeah, it's a puzzle game. About these rocks. So they also showed the baked-in ambient occlusion. That stands out to me, and that's like that on its own is annoying, but it's it happens.
Yep.
It's not like the
And it's the
biggest
thing that I think as an artist you probably don't.
Yeah,
notice
it's
more.
and I accept that that's probably something that I only notice.
Yep.
But then I've seen things where they have used those textures that are specifically baked for rocks, for specific rocks, and used them on geo that was not specifically made for that. So they've basically used it to fill in gaps and stuff. And that is a perfectly like normal thing to do. We do it all the time.
Yeah.
But because these deep baked in shadows,
pock marks and stuff.
yeah, it looks like
It
looks like you can see it's a fairly flat surface, but with
some
these
holes, and
with these
crevices.
blotch marks, that are clearly not there, and it's
think-
especially bad because I've seen it on corners as
Yeah.
well, where you have a corner that has this big black splotch because it was
It's
supposed
meant to
be
look like a hole, but then you can clearly see that it's not a hole. It's
Yeah.
a big solid thing. Yeah.
So there's that. These are
pretty
like
classic.
These are just pet peeves, I suppose, in the end, because like I guarantee nobody cares. And then there's another thing that they do lodding, right?
That's level of details.
Yeah.
Where the further you stand back, the lower the resolution.
Yep.
Of
Yeah.
Yeah,
the,
okay.
the detail.
And
of
that's
objects.
that's all standard and stuff. And like we actually like our game doesn't, like at least for the environment, doesn't do that on the fly because it's a fixed game. We have to basically do it manually. So
Yep.
anything that's like if you're on standing on a platform and you can see way below, we have to make those assets lower polys, usually lower texture, but at least definitely lower poly. Other games like say Skyrim just does that naturally. The engine just is built for that.
Unreal is what's sort of one of its strongest selling points.
Yeah, and that happens in this game, and that's all fine. But there are like points where they have specifically handcrafted lower quality assets because they know that the player will never be able to get up close.
Yeah.
And there are points where, that's all good. You're standing like on a dock and you're looking across a sort of bay, and you can tell that the rocks over there are lower quality, but you can't get close enough, and they look basically fine.
Yeah.
But then you turn next to you and you see the high quality rock, and that's all fine. But then you look up a little bit, like just up to where a player could be able to like reach, like if this was a real thing. And they've got
If you were playing in VR, for example.
yeah, if you're playing in VR, and you've got all these like low quality rocks there as well that are like completely different, like blown out resolution compared to the rocks that are right next to it. And that is also something in our game that we really, really try not to do with rocks. We want to keep the same resolution because as you start blowing out
I imagine
specific
that's
rocks,
something
they're
you
gonna-
notice immediately.
Yeah.
Even an artist will be like that. I mean, even a non-artist rather. Will be like,
Yeah.
But it's at a sort of like you got to look up a bit.
Wow.
And
players don't look up. We know this.
yeah. But yeah, that's my rant about rocks, man. I was a little disappointed with the rocks, but other than that, man, that game
Perfect
was
game.
so good.
Love the puzzles. Love everything. Bad rocks. 5 out of 10. Paul, you've been playing anything?
I've played a bunch of random stuff.
Me too.
I played a bit of Wild Frost again because you were playing it.
Yep.
I played some Inscription.
Oh yeah.
Because Karen at work was like really keen for me to play Inscription.
I didn't finish it. I still need to go back and finish it.
What's
I'm
that?
at the end of
Is
it, I
that-
think.
It's a
card game.
Ah.
But there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
It's puzzles and it's the less you know, the better kind of going.
Yes.
Okay.
What else? I played a little bit of Dave the Diver because you'd been talking about Dave
Yes,
the Diver.
great.
Oh,
What
yep,
did you think?
Initially,
Yeah.
I hated it
Okay.
because you'd described it as this fun sort of chill game.
Yeah.
And then I start playing it, and the first thing you do is go diving, where
Yeah.
you've got the little air bar,
Yeah.
which I find in video games, the whole like drowning mechanic to always give me anxiety way more than like, I'm not particularly
Yes.
afraid of water,
Yeah.
but the whole,
But that you could drown builds a lot of
Yeah.
anxiety. Yes. Look,
And then when things attack you, you lose health.
yeah,
Uh,
you lose air.
You lose air.
Yeah.
Air is the entire, and then like initially as well, the restaurant mechanic is also quite stressful.
Stressful, yeah.
And all these things go away after like an extra like 3 hours of gameplay.
Yeah.
You get like a few upgrades and it gets all. But I started playing this game,
Yeah.
and I was like, this is not chill. This
Yeah.
is the opposite. It's like you're drowning and then you go into like hectic stress restaurant
Yeah,
simulator. It's not. It's not that bad, but yeah, I did not at all find it relaxing.
Did you get?
I don't think did I describe it as chill. I remember describing it as like varied. There's like there's just a lot of stuff in there. But
I don't know if you specifically said that, but that's
that
like
was the
what
vibe you
I
got?
that was the vibe
Yeah.
I got from
I think
talking about this
I
game
think-
with all the mini games and stuff.
I think the diving starts off very chill, and then the deeper you get, it's more hectic.
it does get more hectic. And
Oh, see, I sort of found the opposite. As soon as I had like
Ah.
way more oxygen and
Yeah.
stuff, you've got so much room
It's
to
true.
wiggle
Yeah,
with
yeah,
there.
yeah.
That
but
It's the thing of like you don't know what you're going to encounter.
yes,
Yeah.
You
and
know?
as the story progresses, you go deeper and deeper. That amount of oxygen becomes important just for surviving individual hits.
Yeah.
From like certain
Yeah.
sharks and stuff.
yeah,
So, I don't think that game is ever like super relaxing, but I really just enjoy the aesthetic and the characterization and
I did end up quite
of
liking it.
variety.
I haven't finished it or anything. I
Okay.
stopped. I don't even remember why I stopped playing
have
it.
you had any of the weird mini games yet?
Yes.
Did you get one, for example, where the weapon guy has a dream?
Yep.
I have
And
not
yeah,
had that
the glow stick to the music
Oh
thing.
my god! What?
And there was another one that gets like unlocked on your phone where you're just some.
Is the Tamagotchi one?
Nah, this was like you just
Oh.
had to run and jump.
Yes, yeah. It's after the It's you after the dream. You also unlock a little sort of platformer.
Yeah, where you're being chased by fans and you're not allowed to let the fans catch up to you.
I've not unlocked any of these mini.
You haven't played enough.
I played like 8 hours of it.
You haven't done enough.
I've been diving.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
I do like it now.
I'm glad. I just think that it's got such a great sense of humor to it.
I think the only thing I didn't like about it was they bombard you at the start with lots of things, and I feel like if they'd spaced that out a little bit, it was for a while.
This
It
is
was like
true.
every day there's a new thing,
This is true.
and you've just barely got your head around the
This
thing that was introduced last day.
pacing is its weakest point.
Mm.
You're totally right. It front loads
Yeah.
so much of its stuff, and they keep introducing more stuff. And
Yeah.
so kind of like you kind of there's a point where you're like, how can they? How big is this game? How much more could there possibly be for them to introduce? And then they do hit a point where it's like they stop introducing things, but the story keeps going for quite a while.
Mm.
And I think they could have spaced it out.
Yeah,
little bit
yeah.
better. So you're
Like a little
on that.
like where I'm at now, like it feels like they do occasionally introduce a new thing, and I'm like, that's fine.
You've learned all this stuff.
I've got a lot of
Yeah.
like time between the last one. It was just that those first like 5 days
Here's
just
how you
seems
fish.
like
Here's how
boom, boom,
you
boom.
do a restaurant, and
Yeah.
here's the whole upgrade system for your gear. Here's a whole upgrade system for your weapons. Oh, by the way, there's like a farm and a fish farm, and
Yep.
like oh,
Oh, and
An
the
upgrade
missions
system for
as
your
well, and the
restaurant
quests and the
and-
missions, and
yeah.
and keep track of this thing on your phone.
Don't forget to
and-
collect all the things in the blue app,
Yep.
and because you get a bunch of gear. It's like okay,
Yeah. I also found myself really wanting to just like spend a few days in the game just like getting resources and just but it doesn't the game doesn't feel like it wants you to do that. But it's what I wanted to be doing.
yeah.
I thought that's definitely what I was doing. Like I was spending a few days just killing the big fish.
There was something early on that made me think that there was time constraints.
And I was like,
Partly
stop and stuff.
just it get telling you days and stuff as well makes
Yeah.
me feel like
Oh,
I need to do stuff
yeah.
by certain dates. And
Yes.
if a game has that, then I'm going to try and do all the stuff.
Yeah.
There definitely are some things where that is a mechanic. There's like you have people who visit the restaurant.
Yeah.
And you have to have the food prepped by that day, and there are like special sort of restaurant holidays where you get way more customers for specific kinds of food.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have like event things come up in the
Yeah,
calendar.
like sharks and
Yeah,
whatever
that
it
was
is,
the one where I'm like,
jellyfish.
yeah, there's a jellyfish one, so I just spent like the 2 days farming jellyfish.
Now, Blake hadn't at that point, I think, discovered that you could upgrade recipes.
No, but I have started upgrading recipes.
Yeah. Now, That I find that shocking because it like makes such a big difference to the income you have.
Yeah, it does.
So were you just like struggling? I don't understand.
I was just puttering along.
Yeah, fair enough.
It seemed fine, but like, yeah, I realized like, oh wait, I can upgrade these.
Yeah.
And then you get the cool animations that you mentioned.
Yes.
I really like those. I think those are quite neat.
Yeah.
There's a great one of the chef. I think he's slicing a fish open and like he's looking at admiring how sharp his blade is, and like the ending shot is like him kind of smiling, and then the camera sort of slowly zooms in past his shoulder, and there's a fish in the fish tank behind him. We've been watching it the whole time,
yeah.
and then this horror music starts to play. It's so good.
It's great.
Uh,
It's fun, and it. I was saying this to you before that I feel like you do just enough of each thing to not get tedious and like too much.
yeah.
You know, like if the restaurant thing went on too long, you wouldn't want to
Yes.
do it. You know.
Yeah. One thing I think there's a little too much pressure to do to all of the things to some degree.
I felt that.
Like especially when they unlock the night fishing.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if you unlock night fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you can do night fishing, but at the cost of restaurant time, and restaurant time's so valuable for your upgrades, and it starts to be like this a little. Too much going
And
on.
I had that unlock right as the first.
The restaurant holiday thing
Yeah, which maybe is actually scripted.
might be. I don't really remember.
And then just like all of a sudden I needed to fish for something at night, and then I only had like 2 days to
But-
do it in or
Yeah.
something. And
The those people, so the shark head woman and the moray eel guy,
Yeah.
there was no time limit on that. They can just sit there waiting for days.
Yes.
So there's no pressure to like specifically do it by a certain date.
Oh.
Some of
They'll
them
just
don't.
literally just sit there.
Some of them do have to have pressure, but I think those early ones don't.
Okay.
maybe I just confused those two
Well,
mechanics.
the event, if you'd gotten
'Cause there's also
an
the one
event
with
at the same
the-
time, it could have been
yeah,
like that. And then it's like, oh, this is happening in like 2 days, and that guy happens to show up at the same time. It's easy to be like, oh, I have to get all this.
yeah,
done.
maybe that's what happened.
Yeah.
But I do think too, just even at the end of the day, showing the date change makes you feel like time is very, very important.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't think it is. I mean, I think I've beaten it because I've seen the credits, but after the credits, there was still an event that I hadn't done, and there's still a restaurant holiday that I hadn't done, and then there was still a whole new gameplay section that I unlocked.
yeah,
my God.
sick.
So I'd say I think I beat it, but I don't really know. But I don't think there's like a limited amount of time. I think that there's time pressure for some of the events. I don't even know what happens if you fail. If you like, you may get another chance. It might just be after a delay.
think,
I don't
like,
really know.
I just assumed that because the events were like, oh, if you serve this type of dish,
You get my money.
you'll get more money. If you don't, I just assume
But
you
there
don't
wouldn't,
get
and
more
people
money.
would be disappointed.
There are, in the same way that you like, there's the fish head woman.
Yeah.
There are some characters later on where it's like you have to cook the meal by this date.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's stressful.
But otherwise, you enjoyed it. Sounds like.
Yeah, yeah.
You get to play more?
I haven't. I don't really know why I stopped playing.
Okay.
It might
Have
have
you
just
been
been
playing
that.
something else?
I played a little bit of the new Pee Wee League.
Blake has as well.
Yeah, I played a bit of that as well. It's good. It's a good game.
You guys sound
Yeah.
biased.
What are you talking about? I haven't worked on that game in ages, so I can't be biased.
Different game, PoE 2.
Yeah. There's an interesting thing that so for the leagues, for the last few years, it's mostly been one environment artist working on the majority of stuff.
Yep.
And we get like a couple of other people to do some other things, but it's pretty much like he is the lead guy and
Yep.
and takes care of it all. He put a little portrait of himself as a child in the bar.
That's funny.
Have you ever noticed that?
No.
There's like and he's wearing like a little. He photoshopped it, so he's like wearing like a
Is it period appropriate?
yeah
garb?
like a frilly collar, like kind of, he looks like a real fancy lad.
Lovely.
Yeah, and The funny thing is, I do check on Reddit every once in a while to see if anyone's like noticing
Noticed
this. Nobody's noticing it, but people are noticing like a banana that he put in there somewhere.
Oh,
And
yeah, the
people- There's
banana.
been like threads about this banana.
Well, and then you've heard it here first. There's a secret artist Easter egg.
Yeah.
That's great. I've been playing a little. I've been playing a bunch of different games all over the place, but one that I wanted to talk about was Yakuza. I've been playing Yakuza Zero.
Oh.
Do you guys know anything about the Yakuza games?
Nah.
I mean, I know that it's wacky.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm very far in it, but
Yeah.
I've also been playing. I think I've put in quite a lot of hours. This is one of those games where it's like a little bit like Dave the Diver, where there's just a ton of stuff. So, on its surface level, you play like a Yakuza sort of lower middle management kind of guy. There's lots of story twists. So, very early on, my character is no longer part of the Yakuza.
Okay.
But you run around the streets of a small part of Tokyo, and lots of people want to fight you. So it's a brawler at its heart. It's a brawler.
Okay.
But you can also go into the Sega store and you can play Space Harrier, or you can play with the Crane games, or you can go to a karaoke bar and do karaoke, which is like its own mini game. There's a whole dance sequence mini game. After doing, I think I've done 4 or 5 chapters of the game. I don't know how many chapters there are, but I've unlocked a real estate buying and selling
Oh, what?
mode. And the thing is, the writing in that game is phenomenal.
Okay.
I really, really love the writing. It's translated from Japanese, so I don't know how much of it, like how many liberties they've taken, but it seems to me they've kept the heart of it based on what I know from Japanese humor. I watched a lot of like Gaki no Tsukai, for example, so it has all that same sort of silliness. What a fun game! And I think I bought 7 of them in a bundle.
Oh,
So I think I've
really?
got about 14 years of gameplay.
Oh my god.
Really fun. I think
Man.
those are worth checking out just because same sort of Dave the Diver wackiness, but in a more sort of realistic setting full of wild characters. There's a character.
Is the combat fun?
The combat's pretty fun.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a little bit samey, but like my character has 3 different fight stances. There's like a whole upgrade system. You upgrade your character with money. So like you beat people up, they drop money, and then your character, I guess, eats the money to get stronger.
Yep.
Um,
Makes sense. Happens all the time.
Yeah. There's a lot of weird, funny, primarily weird characters. There was a character in the, I came out of a phone, I guess it's like a phone sex office. The
Yeah.
character goes in there because he's heard that like there are these prostitutes being abused by this guy.
Right.
And he goes in and he wants to find out where this guy is. So he goes in and does a bunch of investigation. And he comes out, and this guy, he walks out, and then he just pulls his face because standing directly opposite him is a very greasy-looking man, only in his underwear, standing out in the middle of Tokyo in the middle of the day, and going, "Hey, buddy, I've seen you all over town. You were at the club last night, and today you were at this. Boy, you can't get enough of the ladies, can you?" And it's like this really completely greasy and it's like really lithe as well. Like it's really out there.
That's
it's
funny.
a really fun. Yeah, those are games worth checking out.
See,
I think I saw a like a short video of that game where it was like a Reddit post, and the post was I'm never skipping another cutscene again. And it was a video that started with a very serious looking cutscene with like 2 guys standing off on a rainy street corner.
Yeah.
And he just like skips the cutscene, and then it loads into like a Mario Kart style, like they're all in like little go-karts racing each other,
Yes.
and you're just like, what?
Yes.
What
Yes.
happened in
Yes.
between?
Yes, it is really fun. I mean, they also had I think it was like the 2nd or 3rd chapter of the game starts with this introduction for this character who you play as for a while. And it's one of the coolest character introductions I've seen in any game. He's like he's the host of a cabaret club. He's like the manager. And there's this belligerent guy, and he comes out and he's like comes out looking all stern and tough, and then he like gets on his knees and is like, "Please leave." And the guy's like, "No." And he's like, "Okay, what do you want?" And he's like, "I'm the customer servant." And the guy tries to punch him and just sort of dances out of the way. It's amazing. It's really, really, it's both cool but funny and fun. and it gives this amazing, memorable intro for this character.
Wow.
Great game. Really enjoying it.
That's cool.
When did it come out?
Great question. I don't know. There's a bunch of them.
Or you,
was quite
you
a
said
few
that it was
years
like
ago.
7 or something. Though.
Yeah,
so I'm
I've
not
got
sure
7
whether
of
this
them.
is.
And then there's like at least 2 or 3 that have come out that I don't think were in this package. So like there's
Okay.
one
Right.
called Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, which I think is part of the same
Oh, yeah.
series,
Hmm.
but with a different title, but same characters.
Yeah.
I don't know. Not part of this.
But you're just playing the first one of
I'm-
this series.
I'm playing the prequel,
Okay.
That's Zero, right?
0.
Yeah.
So I don't know
when it came out.
Yeah, I don't
in
know
relation to the
chronologically.
others.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think that was a big one. I remember because that was like all over. I think like YouTube and stuff. Like people
Oh, yeah?
were playing it and talking about it.
See, I liked. I watched a lot of Video Game Donkey,
Mm.
who does a video every time a Yakuza game comes out because
Oh, yeah.
they're so insane.
Yeah,
They're just
yeah.
ripe for comedy. And I'd seen him play a bunch of them. I was like, these look really fun,
Mm.
but they're on PlayStation. And then this bundle was like 80% off or
That's
something
good.
silly. And
How many
so,
games did you get with it?
7. 7 full. I would guess that each of these are probably like 120
How far back
hours.
do they go though? Like, because some of the older ones you might just be like, they're.
Well, that's what I was
you
trying
know.
to.
Yeah,
gauge.
that's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mm. 'Cause
I've
I
got 'em all,
think
though.
I think Zero is fairly recent. Maybe.
Zero is definitely one of the ones that are like is most highly regarded.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing.
This does seem like maybe I should Google just when
Yeah,
this one came
please.
out.
We're doing that guessing
I'm
thing
I'm
again.
gonna guess
Well,
20.
maybe I shouldn't Google it.
2016.
What?
I'm guessing.
No, definitely Google it, but I'm gonna guess 2021.
That recent.
Yes.
Okay.
Paul, he's
Here
hammering away on his phone.
Dun, 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 dun.
What is this? What are you?
This
is this copyrighted music? Are we gonna have to edit it
I'm
out?
not sure. It's like a game show thing where it's like, oh, what's it gonna be? Dun, 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 dun.
2015.
Oh, I was
Really,
closest.
Yakuza Zero is 2015. I mean, the graphics are not like amazing, although I really like the character design.
Released on PlayStation 4 in Japan in March 2015.
Okay, great. There you go. Almost 10 years old.
When released on Windows and Xbox One. Oh, Windows in 2018 and then Xbox One in
yeah.
2020.
Interesting. So still, it's like a 10-year-old game.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Um,
They don't show their. Does it show its age? Probably not.
visually, yes.
Yeah.
Like low res textures, kind of lower poly
Yeah.
models. Animations are janky a bit, but it's also it's hard to tell because it's also one of those games where there's so much stuff,
Mm.
so many assets. Like you're running around. I've been in 2 different like mini towns of Tokyo, and they're very detailed.
Yeah.
So it's like how much of it is its age and how much of it is the amount of stuff they wanted to cram in. Meant they had custom corners.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It also looks like the first game came out in 2005, and then one came out this year called Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth.
Yeah, that was the one. There's
Yep.
a bunch.
There is a lot of them.
Yeah. It's a huge franchise that I just like know exists.
Yeah,
And that's kind of my only.
that was my
Yeah.
scenario as well until this year. and
Yeah,
was like,
I
decided to
knew
bite the bullet.
actually nothing about it. I'm sure I've seen like the name around and
Yeah.
like in video game context, and then just never looked into it.
It's also a game where I genuinely do not have any concept of how long it's going to go on
Yeah,
because like I said I'm like in chapter 5 or something like that. I don't know. I probably put in this is maybe generously 40 hours. And it's only just starting to unlock what I'm guessing is kind of a core mode of the game, which is the real estate element.
yeah.
40 hours in. Like,
Well, 40 hours is like a game.
Yeah, 40 hours in the game.
Right?
Yeah.
and like there's so many mini quests, and some of them seem multifaceted and like with multiple parts. There's like a whole friendship mechanic I haven't really engaged with much. There's a whole gear mechanic I
One of
still
those.
don't fully understand. Like
Oh boy.
there's a gear hunting mechanic where I go to a Chinese restaurant
Yeah.
and I tell an old lady to send some agents out, and then I bribe her, and then I get a beeper on my on my pager when my item is ready.
On your pager.
Yeah, because it takes place in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
It's really good.
That's
I
cool.
fully endorse
Yeah.
checking this game out.
You do karaoke?
I think I had to do karaoke at the start of the game, so yes.
That's one of the things I know about that game is this karaoke.
Yeah, it's like it's just button
Yeah.
pressing it at the right time, if I recall. but it gets hard. Like
Yeah.
some of those mini games are very in depth, and they have multiple difficulty levels, and they have like online multiplayer for them if you want.
Oh wow.
There's a in the new Final Fantasies, there's a game where you have to play the piano,
Yes.
and
On
it's
the
based
sticks, right?
off both sticks.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
there's like sometimes you got to hold down a button, then like tap the stick in the right direction.
Yeah.
I can't do that. Like it is like too complicated for me to be able to do in time with music.
Yeah.
For those things, I just like actually had to get Stacy to do it.
Yeah. It seems to be kind of a trend though in Japanese developed games in particular
Yeah.
for just like it's kind of a bit of like a bucket of everything.
Mm.
It's like here's sort of the core game. It maybe gets repetitive because it's the same battle system the whole way through, and you're just kind of bouncing between plot points. So here's 50 mini games to make it feel a little bit more varied. And I don't think you don't see that so much outside of I guess Japan and in this case South Korea for Day of the Diver.
I mean,
Like
GTA had mini games, right? But they're not. Didn't have like bowling or am I?
GTA 4 I think did have bowling. I didn't play GTA 4, but I remember there was memes about Nico, let's go bowling. It's your cousin.
Yeah,
whatever.
I can't remember if I can't remember if Red Dead had mini games.
There was poker.
Red Dead had weird,
What's that?
and just like the weird hunting things where you'd go like hunt specific things and stuff.
Yeah, that's what.
But-
burned me out on that game.
When I'm
Trying to get a
when I'm
perfect
talking
count.
mini games, I'm not talking like here's like a place where you go and do a separate activity.
Yeah.
I'm talking like it's a different graphical style, different set of
Oh.
controls. There's a whole like okay, in Yakuza, I can go in and play Go.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
the
okay.
Chinese. I
Yeah.
mean the Japanese like chess.
Yeah.
So, like, not equivalent, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I can go and play what's that tiles game?
Mahjong.
Mahjong. Yes.
Oh,
like
yeah.
but real mahjong.
Yeah.
The kind of mahjong where there were 22 pages of instructions and I still didn't
Oh
understand
my
it.
god.
And I tried and I still didn't. I
Yeah.
couldn't figure out what I was doing.
Did they putting
they-
down those tiles? Was that a satisfying animation and sound?
Audio, yeah. What
It's
was the
like,
audio?
man-
on
Oh, yeah,
the
there's a lot of
tile
clacking.
clack?
Oh, yeah.
There's something about you can just listen to that and it's like,
Mm.
man, that sounds good.
Is our podcast just going to become tile noises?
Maybe
Is
it
it-
should?
Could do.
Is Domino's
And
the
in-depth
podcast
rock
a thing?
discussions.
Yeah.
And what?
And in-depth rock discussions.
Yes. It's just the sounds of rocks.
How are the rocks?
clacking.
What are the rocks like in Yakuza?
Non-existent. Oh, actually, no. That's not true. There's a few spots where you can see some rocks.
Okay.
But mostly you're in little towns, like little cities. And
No
suburbs.
rocks in those towns.
No. But like those are just two things that are kind of near each other.
Mm.
But if I wanted, I could do go kart racing.
Mm.
I could do like not go kart racing.
Why are
like,
you doing these?
Great question. I don't know. Because you can. Because you want to.
'Cause you-
you can generate wealth somehow.
Right.
through
Okay,
those
so
things.
there is gameplay progression through doing them.
Yes.
Is it story wise that like?
Sometimes they are. Sometimes there is. But like for I know there's a quest I have to go to the batting cages for.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
don't know if I'm going to be doing baseball there, but I've done batting cage stuff there
Right.
before. So
Hmm.
it might
This
involve.
game sounds kind of cool, to be honest.
Dude, there's so much.
People say it's cool.
I just
People
don't
love
want to do the DDR thing or the karaoke or whatever.
I mean, the thing is, if you fail, you don't fail the game.
Yeah.
It's just these are there for sort of side amusement.
But it's also, I mean, from what I know, like, it's hilarious, right? Because
It's
you're singing
really funny.
badly. Like,
Yes.
right, like the karaoke is, even if you fail, it's still funny.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It is a very funny game.
Mm.
Big fan.
Yeah.
You guys got anything else you want to say?
I
Before we wrap it up?
I do just want to say I feel like I was like a little too obsessive on some those rocks in that game and barely talked about how much I actually really enjoyed that game.
Which was not at all because of the rocks.
It was seriously like the most satisfying puzzle game I've ever played. And
Did you play Portal?
yes, it's more satisfying than Portal.
Wow.
It's more satisfying
That's a
than
big
The
claim.
Witness. There's a couple of puzzles in that game that require you to literally like figure out a number system. Like that it gives you just enough details in the world, and then from there you have to infer how this entire number system works based on these symbols.
Okay.
And then not only that is that there's a secondary like number system that you can only figure out if you've actually got the first number system right. And when I figured out both those things, it was like the most satisfying puzzle thing I've ever done. I have like pages of just like these random like scrollings.
Sick.
Did you have to use a guide?
No.
Okay, good job. And not good job for you. I mean, good job for you, yes, but also good job for the game developer.
Yeah, they did a really good.
Yeah.
They really did a good job of just like breadcrumbing you enough.
Yeah.
And for ages, I realized like, okay, I can see that I might need to figure this out, but I'll leave it for now because you can still go it like there's still enough just like sort of regular puzzles out in the world to like figure out. But then really the thing is, I kind of wanted to figure it out. That was the thing. It was like, and then it was only later on, after I was like figuring it out, that I realized, oh, actually, it's good that I know this because then I can like it like interacts with like other puzzles in the game. And there's like notebooks and stuff in the game that you read, and they have these number symbols in there, and so you can understand what is being said a lot better just
Right.
because you've like deciphered this number
Right.
system. There is one thing in there that I kind of wish that I don't know how they would signal it, but there is a language in the game, like a proper language.
Yeah.
And I did look this up to see if you can actually crack it because I was sitting in this like room for, I swear, like an hour trying to crack this language.
Yeah.
And they're like, you can't figure it out in this game. And people have figured it out, but only like years later with like supplementary content and like books that have been written about it and like stuff from the developers and behind the scenes stuff. And
okay.
you're like, oh. So they developed a language that is written out and you're like, in some places, and you're like, that's cool. I wonder what it says. And there's a schoolhouse as well that has all these letters as if it was like, and this is where you learn the first few key bits of the number system. So you're like, oh, these letters are here as well. I'm going to figure this out. And I just couldn't get it. And it turned out it's
You weren't
well
supposed to.
beyond
But they
any.
fully allured you into
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
that you could
And
a little bit.
I did literally just Google, like, can you figure it out in this game? And they were like, no, you can't.
Yeah.
There's not enough in that. And and they did say people have figured it out, but it's like, 20 years of supplementary like, stuff that have figured it out.
Someone had to break into the developer's house and find the personal notes and
it's great. It's just, I mean, a lot of the puzzles were from, the early 2000s because this game was like made then.
so they all use flip phones.
Yeah, so it was already good then, so it's already good now, and they have changed a few things. I know that there's like some puzzles that are different, and I've seen videos where people who played a lot of Riven in the past, came into this and were actually like pleasantly surprised that their expectations were changed a little bit.
Nice.
Yeah.
So endorsed? You'd get it
Definitely. It's really, really, really good.
Except for the rocks.
Don't worry about the rocks. Nobody cares about the rocks but me, I think. Just,
But you did
But
care
it's
enough
funny.
to talk at length.
yeah, to talk more about the rocks than how
game
much I
itself.
actually enjoyed the game. Like,
All
the
right.
game is so damn good.
All right, I'll probably wait for it to be on sale, but I will get it at some point.
Yep.
Well, we're out of time.
It's quick. It's quick, too.
There are a couple comments we didn't quite get to, but they're lengthy, and we'll probably try and read them out next time. If we don't, sorry. But you can also just send your questions to frenzyquestions@gmail.com. You can say, Blake, Riven.
Riven.
You can, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, all the things. You can follow us on Facebook, on Threads, apparently.
Yep. We've been on Threads for ages. We've got like 3 followers.
Or,
And I'm one of them.
now it says here Twitter X.
Yeah.
I refuse to call it X.
Really?
Yeah. Sorry,
I've heard
Twitter.
people calling it Twitter X. I mean, most people just call it Twitter.
Yeah.
Nobody calls it X unless they say Twitter X. Just call it Twitter then.
Yeah, it's Twitter. It's Twitter.
Twitter.
And Elon Musk can suck my butt if he, he just, what a weird thing he did. What a weird man.
I know, right?
What a very strange, sad man. Anyway, we'll be back in a couple weeks where I rant about how strange and sad Elon Musk is. Or we talk about video games. One of them. We'll find out.
Both.
And when I say couple weeks, Could be 4 months. Who knows? Bye. Do we have an intro? Do we have like a funny thing that's happened so far that you're satisfied with?
We haven't written or scripted one yet, because that's what we do.
That's what we do. Is
Yeah.
we that's what we spend all week doing.
Yes.
That's why we're so late.
That's what takes so long. Sometimes we just can't come up with an intro, so we're like, maybe we just don't do the podcast this week.
Yeah, and then we come up with pure gold, and that's
Yeah.
why everyone
Yeah.
loves our podcast.
And then we do a load of episodes in one go and bank them all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why all the games we play sound so dated.
That's why I'm still going on about No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
Man, I can't wait for that to come out.
For this new Zelda, it's called Breath of the Wild.
Whoa.
It's meant to come out in a few years.